Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back after your recess, I guess. Reminds me of school. Like everybody comes back after lunch and all the kids are chatting away and the teacher's standing here like, how am I going to handle this? Yeah. It's good to have everybody back. Okay, so as if people are paying attention to Signal and the WhatsApp, several of the WhatsApp groups that are now present, we would know that this is the start of a new series. And that series is called? Yeah. Who sees the show? I'm not going to ask who's the fan. I'm going to ask who sees the show. Huh? The show. Okay. Okay, fine. So the next joke is going to land flat. I was banking on more of you knowing about the show. But anyway, that aside, the only potential copyright infringement is just the title. Everything else is different. All right. So this series, a short introduction on this series, is that we are going to go through in the next 4 weeks, including this. We're going to go through 4 miracles of Jesus Christ, which are slight outliers, which are not necessarily the conventional miracles that you think of when you say Jesus and miracle in the same sentence. And for today, the miracle that we have picked, out of that, what I wanted to focus on is this question. Do you believe? So the miracle in question here is from the section in Mark. I would like everybody to open up their apps, physical Bibles. If you have the Bible memorized completely, you can do that as well. Mark 8, verses 22 to 29. Just in case you don't have one, I'm still putting it up here. So here's how it goes. They, meaning Jesus and his disciples, came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home saying, "Don't even go into that village." So, at the outset, there are a couple of things in this particular miracle, the story of the miracle, that stood out to me when I was learning about this, reading out about this, meditating with this, right? It stands to reason that this guy was not blind by birth. He used to be able to see. Why I say that? 2 reasons. One, it clearly says his eyesight was restored. And 2, he says, "I see people, but they look like trees." How does he have a context of what trees and people look like? So I think it's reasonable to say that this man who had his eyesight was seeing, and then for some reason lost it, and then he got it back, right? That sequence of things is important in this particular miracle. But before we go into any of the details, first things first. True? Yeah? We're all on the same page on this. Jesus was fully well capable of doing this in one go. Sometimes what happens, we might take this passage in its own small section and look like, why did Jesus do it twice? Did he fail? Was this trial and error? Or was there something wrong with the guy? I don't know. We tend to get into that. But we should never read any of this, basically, just within that. We need to read this in the whole context of the Bible. We know that in several other places, Jesus has done so much more powerful things. At one point, foreshadowing, he doesn't even know that, he doesn't even intentionally heal someone. Somebody comes and touches the hem of his garment and they heal. So he is fully well capable of healing in one shot. So then it stands to reason that there is a particular reason, a purpose as to why he did it the way that he did it. All right? No debate here. We're all on the same page on this, I would think. Okay? So, like I said, what is the context in this particular for this particular miracle to take place? So, if you read the whole chapter, it's quite fascinating. So, the miracle actually happens in smack dab in the middle of the chapter. So, Jesus is feeding the 4,000. So, and after that, they leave. And the next section is the disciples are worrying about what they're going to do for the food. And then healing, this miracle section happens. And then finally is the confession of Peter, which is like, you are the Messiah. So these are like the small sections that happen in this particular sequence. But I would like to bring to your attention this particular sequence. Jesus fed the 4,000, okay? So in the first section, 8, 1 to 9, how many loaves of bread did they have? Anybody know? Out of the top of their heads? 5 loaves. 5 loaves and some fish that they found. That's all it says. And he fed 4,000 people. And they collected like 12 baskets worth of leftovers from there. Then they start and they leave. So what has happened? Jesus has shown that he is capable fully well of handling the needs of 4,000 people with nothing more than like the end of the day, whatever left over in a bakery. Right? And then on the way, he is talking to the disciples about the Pharisees. There's a small section in between where he meets with the Pharisees. I'm jumping over that. He's talking about the Pharisees and how they are like yeast. And what do the disciples think? They think that he's talking about bread. We forgot to bring the bread. Oh my God, we forgot to bring bread, so he's brought up yeast. Jesus there at that point is one of those rare instances where Jesus is kind of like, I am losing it with you guys. Because did you not see I fed 4,000 people? Did you not see before that I fed 5,000 people with even less? What are you worrying about bread now? I want to pause there a little bit and just think about that. It's all well and good to see and say, oh, the disciples are all funny. The way this is laid out is just hilarious. But how often do we find ourselves in the same position? There has been few days past. Yes, they saw Jesus do these things, but then in the everyday, after a few days have passed, after they come and are on the boat, and you're on the boat, you don't have like, I don't know, other shopping boats nearby. There's no Amazon or what. So they worried. Despite them being with the actual person, the actual God who literally did this in front of their eyes. They collected 12 baskets worth of leftovers. You would think they'd remember. You would think we would remember that in our past, God has brought us through so many drastically dire situations. Right? But then we tend to forget. And not just that. What exactly is Jesus saying here when he talks about the yeast of the Pharisees? He is trying to convey to the disciples something really important. He's trying to teach them something. And that was completely lost. That was completely lost on the disciples. The minute he mentioned yeast, everybody's guards went up. So that happens as well, even to us. In our muddled, unclear, blurry view of what happened, of who God is, we tend to not listen to what he tells us. We miss what God is actually trying to say. And we end up in our own rut of, oh my God, what am I going to do for food? So, This happens, and then they find themselves in the outskirts of Bethsaida, where the miracle, the section that we just read, comes to pass. And after that, after the miracle section is over, Jesus and disciples go away, and then Jesus asks the question, who do the people say I am? And the disciples give him the different answers that they have heard. They say, some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah, some say you're one of the prophets come back. And then Jesus says, who do you say I am? That's when Peter's clarity hits. He says, you are the Messiah. We can ask, where did this clarity go when you were in the boat, were thinking about yeast and bread and food? Same thing. In the miracle, how the blind man was able to see, then he got blind, and the blurriness with which he saw after the first time Jesus laid his hands on him, and then now the blind man was able to see clearly. You can see the parallel of how this whole chapter is mirroring, the miracle is a metaphor in this whole chapter. Right? So, distorted view. So like I said, this happens to us as well. We are not immune to losing sight of who God truly is, and then starting to get frustrated and wallow in our own things. I'll give you a personal example. As most of you would know by this point, we are expecting again. Thank you. But the first thought that crossed my mind when we heard this news is, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next months? How am I going to sustain this financially? What is going to happen? Oh, I had the same worries when we were having Luca in the beginning. And God brought us through all of that. Everything came at the right time. All the help came at the right time. We just went through it, and it was a wonderful time afterwards. Despite he was sick, he was in the ICU, and God brought us throughout all of that. And yet, when we learned the news again, back to square one, the yeast. So, how do you identify that you have this sort of blurry view of who God is, this sort of distorted view of who God truly is? How do you identify that in your lives? In a lot of times, like I think most times, if you think about it like this is a disease, how do you identify a disease? Through the symptoms. So you look at the symptoms, and then you try to infer what the disease is. In this case, there are some of these symptoms which, if you look at the list, you might be able to pinpoint, yeah, I have that symptom. Or maybe like I have these 3 symptoms which form a triangle. I don't know. So we're not immune to this. We're not immune to this blurry view of God that we have. These things, worry. God provides. Bible says you're not going to add a cubit of length to your height by worrying. What's the point? Easy to say, not easy to do, is it? For us. Sometimes we are like, nah, I'm the best saint that God has ever put on this planet. A sense of self-righteous. Everybody else is going to hell. And I'm going to be on the right hand and the left hand of God. Yeah? We have sometimes rebellion in us, pride. The flip side, we can constantly be condemning ourselves, thinking our God is like, I am such a bad sinner that even God cannot forgive me. Putting yourself above God. It's like God comes and tells you, I'll forgive you. You'll be like, no, that is not allowed. You can go down that path. A lot of times I grew up thinking that, you fall, God is going to be unhappy, and the only relation I had, context I had that, an unhappy person lashes out, so God will lash out. Distorted view. It wasn't true. So yeah, there are so many different ways that you can have this, the symptoms of this distorted, blurry view can show up in your lives. I've mentioned it idolatry. What I mean here is putting your trust on someone else, money, your savings, or some boss or your, I don't know, parents or whatever, putting them above God, right? So these are the symptoms of blurry vision. Let's cut from there and then take a slight jump into people who have had a clear vision of God and see how their stories play out in the Bible. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Who's this? Yes. When David was faced with a really big issue, so this Goliath has been coming 40 days, day after day, saying, who amongst you is man enough to come and meet me here on this battleground? The only person is a shepherd boy who came to give his brothers lunch. And there he sees this man defying. David says, who is this Philistine who is defying the living God? And then he goes on to say, the Lord... Thanks, Bobo. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. He looked back. He saw during his time as a shepherd where he has fought lions and bears and kept his flock safe. He knows that that is the God who has given him, who had given him the strength to do those things, is going to give him the strength to do what he's about to do. That is having a clear view of who God is. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. What happens next in this story? They get thrown in the furnace, and there's a fourth man in the fire. They, you can't practice for this, can you? You can't simply take fire little bit, and then grow an immunity for it. No. This was something that they were tossed into. This was unknown territory. And yet, they knew who their God was. And he was there. Jumping over to the New Testament a little bit. This is Paul writing to Timothy, and he's in chains, he's suffering. And he says this, I know whom I have believed, and am convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until that day. A classic Paul sentence, no, this is. It's beautifully phrased, but you need to sit and read it a little bit to actually understand what he's trying to say. I know who I have believed, he says. And he is convinced, Paul is convinced, that that person, that God, is able to guard what Paul has entrusted to him, his life, until the day. Do you know who you have believed? Can you say that with the same conviction that Paul does? Do you believe in God, or do you believe in the things that God has given you, the blessings that he has given you? This time, I'm going to take a short break, say 5 minutes. The first 3 minutes, I want everybody to introspect and find out what sort of the symptoms of your distorted views of God that you have, and think back or write it down and make a note of these things. I know that I am not in the right here. Right? First 3 minutes, do that. The last 2 minutes, turn to the person next to you, and if you're okay to share this, okay to be vulnerable, okay to open up to the person next to you, please share it. Take out your phones, take out pen and paper, I don't know, slate and bulpum or whatever you guys use, iPads. Just start thinking about, introspect. You know in your heart that there are things that you're doing wrong. There's nobody is perfect. But it's time to think about those and to correct ourselves in some form or fashion now. So for reference, some of the symptoms. This is not by far the entire list. This is just some of the things I have. So, 5 minutes. All right. Attention's back, please. I know that these conversations can go really deep and become really hard to break out of. But hold on to your thoughts. We'll be revisiting these later. Okay? I guess I have most of the church's attention. Okay. So, blurry vision, clear vision. We have examples of these. We know this is true. We have examples of these. Now, how do we get from here to here? That's the question, right? That's what all of us want. I feel like I've been talking to this side of the church. I'm going to turn to this. Sorry. Yeah. Same thing. Just like turn a little bit. Blurry vision, clear vision. Huh? You all with me? Okay. So, how do we get from here to here? I have a couple of things which we can learn from this whole chapter, really. Look back. If you have the habit of journaling, it's really helpful in these situations. You can, even if you just sit quietly for 5 minutes and, what do they say, count your blessings, it will just keep going on. Or God has been merciful and kind and loving and generous towards all our lives. He has brought us out of such situations where you would not have had any other hope. In the past, it's like gone, finished. It's like sometimes we're so relieved, that is over, that we compartmentalize it along with the miracles and God's favor and put it in some corner. Open those up and look at it from like the point of view of how God worked through all of this. So look back, that's one. In the past, your eyes turning backwards to the past. Walk with Jesus every day. See, one of the things that happened in this whole chapter is that from the start to the finish, the disciples were with Jesus throughout. Every day they walked with Jesus. Every day they heard him speak. Every day they learned something new. Every day they forgot new things. But still, they had this relationship with God that they could count on. They were able to walk with Jesus literally. And we have a personal God who does do that with us even now. Like Bert Uncle says, read your Bible. You can't keep an alarm. Allocate time in your calendars for it. Almost everybody here works. Almost everybody here uses some form of task tracking mechanism, I would imagine. Put it in. Why would we not? We don't, different question, but why would we not? Because we have a God who is loving, who is willing to do this, who yearns for our company. So that's every day. Continuous. We do it in the present. Doesn't work? Take a leap of faith. Sometimes things are not clear. Things won't be laid out to you. Things won't happen in the sequence that you think or imagine would happen. It's just not possible for us to fathom what God has in plan for us. Let alone leave the world, leave everybody else, the country, nothing. It's hard. It's impossible for us to even figure out what He has planned for ourselves, our future. See, this is the God who numbered each of our hairs and also calls all the stars by name. That is a scale of things our human mind cannot comprehend. Like scientifically, I'm not saying metaphorically. Numbers that big, our mind cannot comprehend. Right? And we know for a fact that He loves us and has good plans for us. So sometimes, all we need to do is take that first step. A step of faith, a leap of faith. I think this was last week when Andrew brought up something very, very nice. He said, we first wait for a safety net and then take a step of faith. But we take a step of faith and then the safety net comes. That's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. They didn't know what was going to happen. They were going to be cooked medium rare at that point. So, tying this all together, why this season? We all know Christmas is coming up. All amazing excitement, guys. Christmas is coming up. Yeah, that's right. And we do so many things for it. We have Christmas carnival, we have our community Christmas things, some office-related Christmas stuff, school-related Christmas stuff. This is one of those seasons where it's actually quite easy for a Christian to go out and just celebrate God with other people, even if the other people don't really know that's what's happening. But it's a season where we show love to the people around us. It's a season where we show to the community that we love you because He loved us first. So can you take a leap of faith in this season? There might be things going on in your head like, oh, I wish I had the courage. I had the people skills. I had the, what do you call it? What is Steve? An extrovert, yes, sorry. The extrovert nature to just go out, whatever, to go out and make a difference in people's lives. We might have the desire. It might be like bubbling in us. The simplest thing, or simplest yet I understand, the most difficult thing probably, is to take that first step of faith. Talk to the person who God has put in your heart a burden for. Tell them, I'm praying for you. I have a person like that who I haven't been able to reach out and say, dude, you're my best friend, I love you and I'm praying for you. Because we're not of the same faith, yet that burden is there. There might be things that you want to do, things that you want to do in your office, in your community. Step out. Look back at all the times that God has showed favor on you, on all your efforts, on the times especially when you've been like, I don't know what is going to happen, but I feel God telling me, and I'm just going to put my step forward. That's it. Then God takes care of the rest. Sometimes it's not apparent when it's happening. In retrospect, you know. Trust that God. Walk with Him daily. You'll get the clarity sometimes that you need to take the first step. You might have the desire, you might not know what to do. Seek counsel, talk to the elders, talk to other people who have done it before. Sometimes I find especially myself, I have the burden to do so many things, all left in the imagination, all castles in the air. Like, are we storing up the treasures in heaven that God has asked us to do? Are we reaching out and talking to the people? Are we feeding the poor? Are we giving clothes to the naked? This season, where next is Christmas, where it is arguably easier to do all of this, if we don't take a step out now, then it's going to be more difficult later on. So, in relation to this, I want you to go back to the list of things that you have done, you have written out. Pick one of the things that stand out to you the most. Sometimes you can think about how you figure it out is the biggest challenge that you have at the moment, the biggest worry, the biggest thing that is occupying the most amount of space in your mind. It could very well be because you have a distorted view of God. Pick that and ask God to help you fix it. Start there. That's an ongoing process. It's not going to end. Then, commit to taking one concrete leap of faith this season. What do I mean when I say commit? It's not writing it down in paper and then, forgetting about it. Put it in your calendar. If you have to do it weekly, if you have to do it once, set up reminders for yourselves. Set up people that you need to talk to, call them, get some wisdom. Or it could just be like just scheduling a Zoom call with a friend and saying, I want to pray with you. But commit to it. Meaning, the date you allocate for it, the days you allocate for it, you do it. It would be nice if you could find yourself a partner who you can be accountable with for this particular thing. So, so that both of you all can keep each other in check. Right? So, this is not homework, by the way. This you're going to do now. You're going to choose your distortion, you're going to ask God to fix it, and then you have to write down that this is what I'm committing to do in this season. This is a concrete leap of faith this season. All right? So I give you maybe 5 to 7 minutes. Half the time you can do the first one, the next half you can do the second one. Just pair up with the same people you paired up previously, so you have continuity. And go ahead. I sense that some of us are hearing the nudge of the Spirit, but are not confident enough to think that, oh, this is actually from God. If that is you, you can always ask Him for signs to confirm. You can talk to an elder and see if it makes sense with the rest of what God has said. Whatever you do, don't ignore it. Right. I hope everyone has their commitment written down. So now, there's a parting thought I was having. The blind man in the miracle who used to be able to see and then becomes blind, that is a terrifying thing. And yet, when his friends brought him to God, Jesus took him by the hand and led him out of the village. Imagine how scary that can be. Unknown person holding him, he's blind, and walking him out of a familiar place, outside the village. And this blind man went with Jesus. Sometimes that is a leap of faith that we have to take. And after the miracle was complete, Jesus asked him, don't go back to that village, you go home. Don't tell anyone. Back in those days, Jewish rules and customs and cultures were quite different. He might have had to go talk to the elders and show himself, present himself that I have been healed. Jesus went against the grain there. And it took a lot of courage to obey that as well. That is also a leap of faith. As we go to the closing song, I just want everyone to pray and ask God to show and help fix these distortions that we might have, which leads us to a place of not trusting God enough and staying in a state of inaction where we know what we have to do, but we don't do it because we have something else in our heads. This season, this coming last few months, like last couple of months of this year, when we step out to bless the community, make sure you have a clear view of who God truly is. It's not easy. You will have to redo this as in you learn more things about God, but start somewhere. As the closing song is going on, I'd rather everybody pray. You can sing along if that helps, but pray and ask for God to reveal to you what He wants you to do and commit to Him that you're going to obey what He's asking you to do. Let's bow our heads and pray.